Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Englo Talks. We're so happy you're here with us today. If you're listening while drinking tea, studying, driving, or maybe relaxing in your room, thank you for spending your time with us.
Hey everyone, it's great to be back again. Honestly, today's topic is super useful because these grammar structures are everywhere in movies, conversations, podcasts, and daily English.
Exactly. And when I first learned these structures, I used them wrong all the time. I remember saying things like, I would went instead of I would go. Oh, wow, that sounded terrible.
Oh no, but don't worry everyone. Everyone makes mistakes like that. And that's why today we're going to make everything simple and clear for you.
Today, we're learning how to use had plus past participle and would plus base form. These structures help you talk about past experiences, regrets, imaginary situations, polite conversations, and so much more.
Yes, by the end of this episode, you'll be able to say sentences like, I had finished my homework before dinner, and I would travel more if I had more money, naturally and confidently.
And we're not going to teach this like a boring textbook lesson. We'll use real conversations, everyday examples, funny mistakes, and practical situations.
So here's the question for all our listeners. Have you ever heard someone say, if I had known, or I would love to? Write one example in the comments if you've heard these expressions before.
Yes, and while you're commenting, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to Englo Talks. Your support really helps us continue making English lessons for learners around the world.
Also, try speaking out loud with us today. Don't just listen silently. Your mouth needs practice too.
That's such a good point. Sometimes learners understand English perfectly, but they don't practice speaking. So today, repeat after us whenever you can.
All right, then, let's jump into our first section and learn the basic concepts of had plus past participle and would plus base form.
Let's start with had plus past participle. This structure is called the past perfect tense. Don't worry about the big grammar name. The idea is actually simple.
Very simple. We use it when we talk about an action that happened before another action in the past.
Exactly. The structure is subject plus had plus past participle.
For example, I had eaten breakfast before I went to school. She had finished the movie before I arrived. They had left before the rain started.
Notice something important here. Two actions happened in the past. One happened first and the other happened second.
Right. In the sentence, I had eaten breakfast before I went to school, eating breakfast happened first. Going to school happened second.
Here's another everyday example. Yesterday, I was looking for my phone everywhere. Then I realized I had left it in my bag.
Oh, I do that all the time. Last week, I couldn't open my laptop because I had forgotten the password.
See, these are natural situations. English speakers use this structure constantly when telling stories.
Here's another example for listeners. I had never tried sushi before last year. We had already seen that movie. He had studied English before moving to Canada.
Now, let's talk about negative forms. The structure is subject plus had not plus past participle.
Or the contraction, hadn't.
For example, I hadn't slept well before the exam. She hadn't met him before the party. We hadn't eaten anything all day.
Can you make your own sentence now? Try saying one out loud using had. Maybe talk about something you had done before school, work, or a trip.
Great practice. Now let's move to would plus base form. This one is everywhere in English conversation.
This one is everywhere in English conversation.
The structure is subject plus would plus base form.
For example, I would travel more. She would help you. They would love this restaurant.
We often use would for imaginary situations, polite speech, future in the past, or repeated past actions.
Here are some examples. If I had money, I would buy a new car. I would love some coffee. When I was a child, we would visit my grandmother every weekend.
That last example is important because would can describe repeated actions in the past.
Exactly. Like every summer, we would play cricket outside. My father would tell funny stories at dinner.
Now, let's combine both structures together. Listen carefully. If I had studied harder, I would have passed the test.
That sentence talks about an unreal past situation. The speaker didn't study hard, so they failed the test.
Many learners hear these sentences in movies and think they're impossible to understand.
But actually, they follow a pattern. Once you learn the pattern, everything becomes easier.
Here's a quick listener challenge. Complete this sentence. If I had more free time, I would...
What would you do? Travel? Sleep more? Start a business? Write your answer in the comments.
Another important thing, after would, always use the base verb.
Yes, say I would go, not I would went.
That mistake is extremely common.
Let's do a few practice questions. Can you say I would eat pizza tonight?
Good. Now try, she had already finished her work.
Excellent. Keep practicing out loud because speaking helps your brain remember grammar naturally.
Before we move on, let's quickly summarize. Had plus past participle talks about an earlier past action.
And would plus base form talks about imaginary situations, polite speech, future ideas, or repeated past actions.
Awesome. Now let's move into even more advanced and natural uses. Now we're going to talk about how these structures make your English sound more natural and mature in conversations.
Yes, especially when telling stories or talking about regrets and dreams.
Let's start with regrets. If I had slept earlier, I would have felt better today.
That sentence means the speaker didn't sleep early and now they feel tired.
Here's another. If I had saved more money, I would have bought a better laptop.
These are very common in daily English.
People use them when thinking about past choices.
Let's make it practical. Imagine you missed the flight.
You could say, if I had left home earlier, I would have caught the flight.
Or maybe, if I had checked the time, I wouldn't have been late.
Notice how these sentences sound emotional and realistic.
Exactly. They help speakers explain consequences.
Now let's talk about politeness again, because would is powerful for social situations.
Imagine you're asking your teacher a question. Would you explain that again?
Very polite.
Or at work, I would appreciate your advice.
Here's a cultural tip. In English-speaking cultures, indirect and polite language is very common.
Yes, saying, would you mind helping me, sounds softer than help me.
Let's do a mini practice. I'll say a direct sentence and speaker 2 will make it polite.
Let's do it.
Give me your notes.
Would you share your notes with me?
Open the window.
Would you mind opening the window?
Excellent. Listeners, try this too. Take one direct sentence and make it polite using would.
Write your answers in the comments.
Another natural use of would is preferences. I would rather stay home tonight.
Or, I'd rather watch a movie.
Native speakers use would rather constantly.
Here's a pronunciation tip. Many speakers say, I'd rather very quickly.
So listen carefully when watching movies or YouTube videos.
Now let's talk about storytelling. When I arrived, they had already started eating.
This creates a timeline in the listener's mind.
Exactly. One action happened before another.
Another example, she was nervous because she had never spoken in public before.
That sounds smooth and natural.
Here's a practice situation for listeners. You arrive late to a movie theater. Create a sentence using had already.
Maybe the movie had already started.
Great! Now create a polite request using would.
For example, would you save me a seat?
Excellent practice.
One more thing. Don't speak too fast when practicing these structures.
Yes, focus on clarity first. Speed comes later.
Repeat sentences slowly and confidently.
And don't worry if grammar feels difficult at first.
Every fluent English speaker made mistakes while learning.
Before we finish this section, here's a quick structural review. Had plus past participle equals earlier past action.
Would plus base form equals politeness, imagination, preferences, repeated actions, and hypothetical situations.
Now, let's look at the most common mistakes learners make.
All right, time for the mistakes section. And honestly, these mistakes are extremely normal.
Very normal. We've made them too, so don't feel embarrassed. Mistake number 1, using the wrong verb after would.
Incorrect, I would went. Correct, I would go.
Why is the first one wrong? Because would must always be followed by the base verb.
So remember, would eat, would see, would travel.
Not would ate, would saw, would traveled.
Mistake number 2, using past tense instead of past participle after had.
Incorrect, I had ate dinner. Correct, I had eaten dinner.
Many learners confuse past tense and past participle forms.
Here are more examples. Go, went, gone. See, saw, seen. Write, wrote, written.
Practice these irregular verbs often.
Mistake number 3, using had when it isn't necessary.
For example, yesterday I had went to school.
That's wrong because there's only one past action.
Correct, yesterday I went to school.
Use past perfect only when comparing two past actions.
Exactly.
Mistake number 4, overusing would in every sentence.
I once heard someone say, yesterday I would go to the market.
Oh, wow, that sounds funny.
It should be, yesterday I went to the market.
Would is not just another past tense word.
Let's do some quick practice. Which one is correct? I had seen that movie or I had saw that movie?
Correct answer, I had seen that movie.
Another one. She would help you or she would helped you.
Correct, she would help you. Great job. Here's a funny example from my early English learning days. I once said, if I would have money, I would buy pizza.
Ah, yes, many learners say that.
A more natural version is, if I had money, I would buy pizza.
Small change, but big improvement.
Listeners, which mistake do you make most often? Tell us honestly in the comments. It helps everyone learn together.
And remember, mistakes are proof that you're trying.
Exactly. Nobody becomes fluent without errors.
Keep practicing, keep speaking, and keep improving little by little.
All right, let's move into our interactive practice activity.
Let's do it.
Welcome to Choose the Correct Sentence. We'll give 2 options and you choose the better one.
Speak your answer out loud before we explain it.
Situation 1. A. I had finished my homework before dinner. B. I had finished my homework before dinner.
Correct answer? A. Because after had, we use the past participle finished.
Situation 2. A. I would go with you. B. I would went with you.
Correct answer? A. Remember, after would, always use the base verb.
Situation 3. A. She had already left. B. She had already leave.
Correct answer? A. Left is the correct past participle.
Situation 4. A. Would you help me? B. Will help me.
Correct answer? A. It sounds more polite and natural.
Situation 5. A. If I had more time, I would learn guitar. B. If I would have more time, I learn guitar.
Correct answer? A. Very natural conditional sentence.
Excellent work, everyone.
Now try changing the tone. Formal, I would appreciate your help. Casual, could you help me?
Different situations need different tones.
Exactly. English isn't only grammar, it's communication and feeling too.
Here's your final challenge. Create one sentence using had plus past participle and one sentence using would plus base form.
And yes, post them in the comments. We love reading your examples.
Keep speaking out loud. Your confidence grows every time you practice.
And remember, real conversation matters more than perfect grammar every single time.
Wow, today's lesson was packed with useful English.
Absolutely. We learned how to use had plus past participle for earlier past actions and storytelling.
We also learned how would plus base form helps with politeness, imaginary situations, preferences, and repeated past actions.
And we talked about common mistakes learners should avoid.
Most importantly, we practiced real-life English, the kind people actually use every day.
That's the goal of Englo Talks. We want English to feel natural, friendly, and useful.
So don't worry if you still make mistakes. Keep practicing a little every day.
Fluency doesn't happen overnight. It grows step by step.
Before we go, here's a question for you. What's one sentence you can make today using would or had?
Write it in the comments and practice saying it out loud.
And if this episode helped you, please like, share, and subscribe to Englo Talks so you never miss our English lessons.
You can also share this episode with a friend who's learning English.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We always love learning together with you.
Keep practicing, stay confident, and keep speaking English every day. See you next time.